All right, hello again. So in this video, we're going to go over how to make your images black and white. So they look more arty and more expensive. No, that's not why. Well, maybe. So we're going to take some color images and turn them into black and white. So as an example, here's one example here. Here's what we're going to do it in Lightroom and in Camera Raw. It's a very similar process. So here's the original, and then here's after. Also do a little bit of perspective correcting and some retouching sort of stuff and all kinds of stuff. So converting to black and white. Why would you convert to black and white? Why not shoot in color, right? Why not shoot in black and white in the first place? Well, a lot of cameras do have a black and white mode or a black and white scene or a special effect or whatever. You probably don't want to use that too much, because if you shoot in black and white, then you're maybe stuck with black and white, meaning that your image is black and white. You know, that color is not in there anymore. And the other reason is, so you're kind of stuck with it, right? The other reason is you often get better results with black and white by shooting in color and converting to black and white than shooting black and white in the first place. It's kind of a weird thing, but you get more information to work with. You can accentuate certain colors in the black and whites, that kind of thing. So basically, you probably want to shoot in color anyway, even if you're going to turn it into black and white. And you can always turn it into black and white after the fact, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're also going to talk a little bit about duotones and splittones, which are sort of ways to stylize your black and white images and add a little bit of color. They kind of refer back to old school sort of toning techniques, where you used to dip your prints into chemicals and stain them and things and toxic waste and stuff like that. Now we can do that and stuff in Photoshop, obviously. Oh, by the way, we're also going to do this in Photoshop and Lightroom, so you'll see, or Camera Raw and Lightroom. We're also going to talk about Camera Raw profiles, or maybe just profiles in general, which are good starting points for black and white, and you'll see that as well. So I'm going to open one of these images. Let's see. So I'm opening this image here. This is a raw file. This is just out of the camera. It's kind of blah, right? This is Siena, Italy, I believe. So we're going to take this image and kind of jazz it up a little bit. I don't know if that's a technical term, jazz it up, but yeah. So a couple ways we can do this. First, I'll do it kind of the plain way, and then we'll do it maybe a little bit better way, and I won't spend a ton of time on the plain way. I made that term a plain way. But up here in the top right, under the basic tab in Camera Raw, you've got a black and white button. So you click that button, and it turns black and white, and we're done. No, we're not. It looks pretty bad, right? So over here, you've got profile right there. It says Adobe Monochrome. And going back to our little thing about Camera Raw profiles or profiles. So Monochrome was one of the ways that it's kind of a starting point you can use to edit from. This is a color profile. So I think these use color lookup tables, or LUTs. People call them LUTs, people in the business, right? They're used a lot in film and movies and image processing. It's basically like a sort of a treatment for the image. The good part about it is that they're non-destructive, so you can always switch. The other part about it is, you see I switched to black and white here, and then it defaults to Adobe Monochrome as the profile, but none of these sliders have done anything. The vibrance and saturation sliders went off because those relate to color, and there's no color, right? But nothing else changed. So they don't really work any sliders. It's not like a preset where it's going to change a bunch of exposures and black and white settings and things like that. So you can kind of use them as a starting point. So I'm going to just tweak this one real quick and just show you how this works from Adobe, using the Adobe Monochrome profile. I'm thinking the exposure needs to be a little brighter, so I can see more into here. And then I'm going to bring up the shadows a little bit too, like we often do, right? And I'll bring down the whites. I'll even try the old double click the white slider to get it to, yeah, so it's not clipping, right? So remember, we're looking up here in the top right. Let's see if I can zoom in there a little better. There's that clipping warning thing right there, and that's going to show me if it's clipping, meaning there's loss of detail. So if I go too far on the whites, then it turns white up there, and we don't want that. So I'm going to bring that back a little bit, and I'll do the same thing on the blacks. I'll go this way until I get a clipping warning. Right there's the clipping warning. And so now we've got a good range of blacks to whites, and I've raised the exposure a little bit. These highlights are kind of blown out, so I'm going to go this way to bring back a little bit more of that sky detail. Maybe I'll go a little bit lower on the exposure and bring the shadows up because I want some sky in there. And I'm going to increase the contrast a little bit. I'm going to definitely add some texture and some clarity to kind of make it pop. So when you're doing black and white, people often like super contrasty, textury kind of stuff. Gives the eye something to grab onto, some eye candy. Don't overdo it though, right? Because then you'll get, things. I mean, you could do that, right? But just don't overdo it. It is kind of eye candy, meaning what I mean by that is, people like to look at it, but it's cheating. No, it's not cheating. It just have some restraint, I think is what it is. Okay, so I've kind of added some texture and clarity and probably more contrast actually to give it that gritty kind of black and white look. I'm also going to go over here to the tone curve and change the curve to a medium contrast curve just to give it a little more pop. Then I'm going to go over to detail and sharpening. I'm going to increase the amount of sharpening. Again, to kind of clean up and give it some pop to it. I'm going to ignore the noise for now. I'm kind of fly through this pretty quick. There's a black and white mix area, which is pretty cool. So what you can do with that, let's say I wanted to accentuate the blues. Or mess with the blues. I could drag this blue slider, and you see if I drag the blue slider down, then I get a bunch of that detail back in the sky from the blue sky that was there. So even though we're looking at a black and white image now, obviously, it still knows what color was there. So I'm dragging down the blue there. And actually, I could do this also with our old friend, the target adjustment tool. So I'm going to grab the target adjustment tool right up here. And I'm going to click on the sky and kind of drag down. Oh, look at that. And it does kind of the same thing, but it also grabbed a couple of the aqua shades as well. So remember when you use that targeted adjustment tool, and I've got it set to black and white mix here by default, or it did that for me, I didn't have to do that. Then it knows what part you're clicking on and it kind of manipulates those. It's almost all blue, but some aqua. Maybe I want to bring this up. So I'm going to click on this part and you can see that it's messing with the oranges. I don't know if this is orange anymore because it's black and white, but if you watch that orange slider as I do that, see it's kind of going, but it's also moving the yellow slider a little bit. So there we go. That's pretty fun. You might want to do that later in the process, but you definitely can do that. I'm going to go to lens corrections and do some corrections. So the first one I'm going to do, which maybe you've seen this in another video, is just enable profile corrections right there. So I'm going to click on that and you'll see the image kind of bows a little bit. So what that does is it knows from the EXIF data in the camera or in the file if it does have that data, it will read the file and it knows that this was shot with a certain lens and a certain color or lens profile, and it corrects for it. So if I check that and uncheck that, you'll see it's kind of doing some correction. It's kind of fixing some of the distortion from the lens. So that's cool, right? Just check that, and then as long as a lens shows up here, you don't have to worry about it. You could also tweak it, but we're not going to worry about that. Yeah, so then I'm going to, I think that's about all I'm going to do here. So if I wanted to save this as a preset, I could. So I could go down here to presets, and I could click on this button down here that says new preset. And I can say what I wanted to save as that preset. So so I'm saving the profile. I'm going to go to none actually, because I don't want to save everything I just did, but I'm going to click on profile because I wanted to use that profile. And I can now select or deselect whatever I want to save. So I'm just going to leave it as profile, maybe the black and white mix, just as an example. And I'll save it as Mark BW, that's like black and white 1 or something like that. And I'll save it in user presets. So now that I save that, if I look over here in presets, I have a bunch of them already in there, but there's Mark black and white 1. If you roll over these presets, you can see what the image looks like with that preset. So there's the one I just did, right? So you can save all this stuff as a preset and then apply it with one click. You just click on it and it'll apply it. Also, what I can do is anytime I'm working on these, I can save sort of a version. So I'm going to go to the last tab here, which is snapshots, which you may have seen in another video, but maybe not. And it's all blank. It's like not very exciting, right? But down here at the bottom, I've got a button that says New Snapshot. So I'm going to click on that, and I'll call this version 1 because I have no imagination. So I'm going to say version 1, and I'll say OK. So now that anything I do after this, I can go back to that point if I want to. It's kind of like having a certain spot in my process that I want to go back to. What I want to do now is go up here to the transform tool and do one more thing just to show you that I could save that version too. So I'm going to go up here to the transform tool. Oops, there we go. And I click on that. And then over here on the right, I've got the transform settings. And I could mess around with these and try to fix some things. But what I'm basically seeing is there's a little bit of distortion, right? These are kind of, this should be a vertical line, but it's not a vertical line because I'm looking at it from the ground, right? So I'm just going to click on this A for auto and see what happens. And voila, it's kind of, voila, that's French, right? It kind of fixed that a little bit. Let me go back to none and then back to A. So it kind of made these lines vertical and kind of corrected some of that distortion. You could also mess with it manually if you wanted to do it more. But when you do that, then you're going to start losing parts of the image. So let's say I did want to do that. Maybe I want to do that, right? Does that look better? Maybe. And then, but now I've got to crop it, right? I'm going to go ahead and crop that because I've lost the bottom part of the image. So I'm going to crop it. And the more of this perspective correction stuff you do, the more of the image you're gonna lose. But yeah, there we go. So that looks pretty good. So I'm gonna say that I like that version as well. I'm gonna go over here to snapshots and I'm gonna hit another one and say version 2. If I could spell version, which I can't. Oh, there I did. So there's version 2. So now I can click on these and you can see, oh, well, maybe I like this better. It looks more natural, or I like it more straightened, whatever you want. You can go back to those different points in time. So that is method 1. I think I'm gonna stop there on that. So I'm gonna click done. Now remember, if I click open image, it's gonna open that image in Photoshop. If I want to save it as a new image, I can click down here and click it at Save Image. Or I can click on Done right there, and it will it'll close the image, but it'll save those settings in an XMP file. Remember also that if I change my mind completely and I'm like, wow, this was a horrible experiment and I don't want to do that, I can hold down Option or Alt on a PC, and this cancel changes to reset. If I clicked on that, it would go back to the beginning. Or open image goes to open copy, and I'll open it as a copy of the image, not the original image, in Photoshop. So those are all options, but I'm just gonna click done. And it's gone, right? But if I look now in my folder where I just did that, then it saves what I just did as an XMP file. XMP file is the text file. Looks like that. It looks like a bunch of code, which it kind of is. And it just remembers what I did to that image. Remember that. Right, this is all non-destructive, so I can go back and redo that. Okay, so now I'm gonna do this one more time. I'm gonna open image 3 here and back to the beginning. And this is pretty much the same, except I'm gonna start with a different profile. So I'm gonna go over here to black and white and click on that. And then it says Adobe Monochrome. This is where we started before, right? But if I click on this little button here, doesn't really look like a button, but it is a bunch of profiles. And these are, like I said, starting points that you can use. And there's a bunch of black and white profiles. So I can kind of roll over these and see which one I like. And remember, this is just a starting point. So some of them are higher contrast, some of them accentuate certain colors or other colors. So I'm gonna say, I don't know, I'm gonna go with number, I think 7, because 7 is kind of looking like a good starting point. And again, this is all up to you, right? So I'm gonna click on black and white 7, and then up here at the top, you can see there is a slider. So another cool thing about this is you can apply it as much as you want or as little as you want. So if I go to 0, obviously it didn't do anything, right? But it goes to 200. It's like Spinal Tap. And you can see the image changing, right? So I'm gonna go pretty far over because I like that drama of that. It's kind of see the sky is kind of coming out a little bit. I'm gonna go way over here to about 150 and then start from there. And then you just click this close button right here. Click close, and now I'm back to my regular scheduled program with all my regular palettes, basics, and all that kind of stuff, but I'm starting from that new point. So now I can really kind of go crazy if I want to, right? I'm gonna do some of the same stuff. I'm not gonna do the whole thing again because you guys already saw some of this, but I'm gonna drop the shadow, or raise the shadows, drop the highlights. Blacks are kind of clipping already, so I'm not gonna really mess with those. The whites, I'm gonna go this way. Remember, we're looking up here for the clipping warnings. And then I'm gonna add texture again, and clarity. And I didn't really try the dehaze, but the dehaze will actually give you some sky back too, and add a little bit of all this stuff kind of down here. Kind of gives you a little bit more contrast and pop, right? So that I did all that in the basics panel. You can see I'm still using that black and white 7 profile. That's still in effect, and I could still mess with the amount, but I kind of like it up here about 150, I think. And then I can still go through all those different panels and change things if I want. It's already pretty contrasty, but I'll go to a medium contrast curve. I'm gonna go to sharpening. Black and white likes a lot of sharpening, so I'm gonna go that way. You can always use the masking slider, which I think we've seen before, but if I hold down Option or Alt on a PC, Option on a Mac, right, and I slide this masking slider, the sharpening is not gonna be applied to everything. And usually you would use this on a portrait or something. So I'm gonna sharpen everything. Maybe I don't wanna sharpen the clouds though, so maybe I'll go this way a little bit. Yeah, so you can do that. Wherever it's white, it is applying the sharpening. It's looking for edges. Wherever it's black, it's not. So if I go like that, it's sharpening everything. If I go like that, it's only sharpening the very edges of those buildings, kind of like an outline. So I'm gonna go about right there. I could get rid of noise if I want. Do I have a lot of noise here? I kind of do. Let me zoom in here a little bit. This is noise right there. If I wanted to get rid of that, I would go this way on the luminance noise reduction, and it's not, oh, there it goes. It's kind of delayed on me, but it's kind of softening everything else up. So I'm going to leave it. I'm going to act like I want it. Just own it. Just own it. But I'm getting a lot of noise in here, which looks like grain, which is an old school kind of thing with film photography where you added grain, or you didn't add grain, you just had grain, and people liked it actually. Some people liked it. So I'm gonna leave it in because it also keeps this real crisp, right? Black and white mix, I could still mess with that if I wanted to. Maybe I wanted to bring the blues down even more. You can see that sky looks almost scary, like there's gonna be a tornado or something, but I could do that. And I can also enable my profile corrections, and I could do my my upright if I wanted to. I'm just do auto this time. Same thing we did last time. Sorry, I'm going through this fast, but we already did this once. Now, since I'm here, I want to do one more thing. So I've kind of done what I was thinking as far as, I'm going to get back to the hand tool so I can get back to my panels. I think that's about what I wanted to do. But I wanted to show you duotones and split tones. So what does that mean? So I've still got a black and white image, right? This is just black and white. Let's say I wanted to save that version. I'm going to make a new snapshot. Click on the snapshot button. Click on that. Version 1 again. This is a new image, so that's why there's a version 1 of this one. Okay, so now I'm gonna do a duotone and a split tone. So what are these? These are, like I said, they've been around for a long time. Used to be a chemical process. Ansel Adams, for example, used to do it using selenium, which sounds like something from a Marvel movie, right? It's made of selenium, which made his print slightly purple in the darker areas. So he would tone them to give this sort of subtle kind of colored look. They were still black and white images. They were kind of stained. That's kind of like what toning is. So duotones, what are duotones and split tones? Duotones are often a combination of black and another mid-tone color. So it comes from the printing world where they kind of try to save money by mixing black and white images with one single color added in. And then a split tone is a little bit different. It kind of uses 2 colors or more, actually. You can do quad tones, tritones, all kinds of things. And that is kind of toning with multiple colors, one for the highlight and one for the shadows often. Oh, sorry, I'm interrupting past me because the split toning panel has been replaced by the color grading panel. So I'll have a link for you on the class instructions page about using the color grading panel to do toning of images. Now back to our regular video. One thing I wanted to show you is you can do this, basically the same thing in Lightroom. So here we are in Lightroom. If I click on this image, this is the raw version of the image. This was the one that I already did, it's kind of a demo, right? If I click on this one, now I'm back to the original version. Look over here in the panel on the right, same stuff. So remember we've said that a lot of the processing, a lot of the algorithms inside of Camera Raw and Lightroom are the same. Maybe we didn't say that, but I'm saying it now. So I'm saying it now, yeah. So I'm gonna click on black and white, and then you see what? It goes to Adobe Monochrome, same exact thing, right? So now I can click on Browse, or I could click on the little button and I can browse the different looks. So let's say I wanted to go super contrasty. I'm just gonna go fast on this one. So I'm gonna go black and white, 0.9. And then I can adjust the amount again. So this one only goes, oh, it does go that far. So I'm gonna go, I don't know, 113 for the amount. And then I'm gonna close it. And then I get back to my basic panel, which is the same stuff that we saw in Camera Raw, right? But it's all kind of in this long string instead of in different panels. So I'm gonna click on auto upright in this one, see what it does. Ooh, I lost a lot of image, but it did straighten that. So I'm gonna go to my crop tool and crop, because I lost the side there. And whoever this photographer was cropped the top of the church. Oh, that was me. So that's a mistake that you can't really get back. But anyway, okay, so I'm gonna go raise the exposure a little bit and raise the shadows so I can see this stuff over here. And then whites again, blacks down, whites up, till I get a little right to the edge where there's no clipping. There we go. Add some texture and clarity again. Yep. And then here I've got my tone curve. I'm gonna add a medium contrast. So it's a little different here in the, there's no targeted adjustment tool in Lightroom, or is there? So here's the black and white mix. There's a little button right here. It's tiny. You can easily miss it. It says adjust black and white mix by dragging the photo. Okay, I'm gonna click on that. And then I'm gonna go up here to the blues and drag down. Oh, much more dramatic, right? So I just clicked on the sky and dragged down, and it dragged the blues, and it looks like it's all blue. It didn't pick it up any other colors. But I think this should probably be a little darker. I'm gonna drag. So that's not doing anything. So I'm gonna undo that. So I only did I was trying to drag this down because this is a little bright for me. You got split toning and same stuff in there. I could do a split tone. I'm not going to do it on this one. I've got my sharpening panel, all the same stuff, right? I can do my profile corrections, which I should have done probably before. I did the crop, but that's okay. You guys didn't notice. I could also vignette, but I don't want to get cheesy, so I'm not going to do. Did I say that out loud? Yeah. One thing that I do want to show you in Lightroom is I'm going to go to my adjustment brush here. And I could have done this in Photoshop, Camera Raw as well, but I'm thinking that this front of this church is too bright. I'm actually going to bring down actually I'm going to leave the exposure the way it is because I'm liking the rest of it. But I'm going to bring down this front of this church a little bit. So I'm going to click on exposure and drag it to the left a little bit, and then make a bigger brush. And then I'm going to sort of paint over the front of this guy just to darken that up. And this is kind of cumulative, so I'm going to keep painting. The more I kind of go over it, the more it darkens it up. Something like that. If I hit O on my keyboard, I can see where that mask, or where I'm painting. So if I miss some spots, maybe over here a little bit, maybe up there. And I can do auto mask and the same kind of stuff that we've probably seen before, but I'm gonna do that. So I hit O again, That makes it a little more even. Maybe that's a little too much, but now I can drag this slider, right? Uh-oh, radioactive. I'm gonna go this way, maybe about right there. Yeah, something like that. There you go. So I think that is good on that one. So we went from, here's the original again, from that to that in, I don't know, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, something like that, right? I went pretty fast, but basically that was the same stuff that I did in Camera Raw, but I did it in Lightroom. So you can do the same stuff, pretty much. It might not be exactly, but it's pretty darn close to. If I did like what I did here, I can do the same thing in Lightroom as well with presets. So over here on the left are presets, right there. And I click on the little plus and I click on create preset and I can add whatever I want. So I'm gonna call this BW1 just to be, whoops, BW1. And I can say what I want to save in there. So I'm going to treatment and profile. I started with the profile, right? I started with, I can't remember which one it was, but I started with the profile. So I'm gonna leave that. I'm actually going to check none and then pick what I want. I'm gonna save the treatment and profile. I'm gonna save the basic tone stuff in case I want to use that again. So that, again, you can include or not include whatever you want. I'm gonna save the tone curve. I'm gonna save the texture and clarity, the sharpening, the black and white mix. I didn't do split toning, but I could save that. Lens corrections, I'm not gonna save them all. I'm just gonna save the lens profile corrections, which means I'm correcting for that lens, but I'm not gonna save the lens distortion stuff because that might be different. So it depends what you wanna save, right? I'm not gonna save the transform because every image is probably gonna be different on that. So I think that's good. I'm gonna click create. And now that's a one-click preset underneath here under user presets. I don't know where it went, but here's one I did earlier, mark BW1. But there's a bunch in here, right? And I just roll over them to see it. You can also see it up here in the navigator. That would work the same way in Camera Raw. Save a preset and you can save whatever parts of that preset you want. Here's one I just did, BW1. I actually like this one better. So if I change my mind, I don't know. What do you guys think? That one's a little dark in the sky, but anyway, I think you get the idea. So that is taking your color images either in Camera Raw, Adobe Camera Raw, from Photoshop, or in Lightroom and converting them to black and white and making super dramatic, expensive images. All right, I hope that helped a little bit and I will talk to you guys again next time.